Hello, everybody. Welcome to these RTS Student Masterclasses. Over the next few hours, you'll be hearing from practitioners at the very top of the game in sound, in cinematography, in factual and drama, and in editing. We hope you'll stay with us for the chance to hear from some of the very best people in the business in the UK. Joining me for this first session is Nick Fry, who's Head of Sound at the Farm Group. Nick is an RTS and BAFTA Award winner for his work as a re-recording mixer on programmes which cross the spectrum, from documentaries to entertainment, shows to sport. And we'll be seeing some clips today from all those genres. We'll also be answering some of your questions as we go along, so feel free to use the kind of chat facility to get those questions to us. First of all, Nick, let's just start by talking a little bit about how you got your role in the industry. What were your kind of beginnings?
Good morning, everyone. I was always interested in TV. I thought it was quite magical when I was young, and I remember watching it and thinking I loved the technology. I thought it was just incredible how the images got onto the TV, and I knew I wanted to be in TV, but just didn't know what part of TV. When I was 16, I got work experience at Wood Lane, at the BBC Wood Lane. I kept hassling them, writing them letters, and eventually they agreed to give me some work experience there. So I worked there for 2 weeks on work experience, and I was in every single department throughout Wood Lane, which was just absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And again, when I left there, I still didn't know what I wanted to do because I just found it all fascinating. I just thought it was magical. When I left, I went to college and did electronic engineering at college. Again, knew I wanted to be in telly, but wasn't quite sure. And a friend of ours who lived near us was a radio DJ, and he knew someone at a facility at Molinare, and they got me a job as a runner. And I started as a runner, and I was running for probably about 2 years before I was finally promoted into audio as an assistant, and then worked my way up through that. I spent loads of time in the studios on my own at weekends, learning how to just trying to get an idea what happened in the room. Then I sat with the mixers, which is a great way of learning, seeing how they interact with clients, seeing how they use the equipment, watching what they did. I progressed into audio eventually, became a track layer or sound editor. I did that for probably a year, 2 years, on a huge, again, wide variety of programs. And eventually, I think it was one day one of the mixers rang in sick. I think there was only two of them at the time, and one of them rang in sick. And I remember Nicky Sargent ringing me up and going, "Nick, one of the mixers has phoned in sick. You're going to have to get in the studio and get on with it." And it was a proper kind of sink or swim moment, and it was pretty scary. But luckily, I swam. Yes, I was at Molinare for quite a while, for about 10 years, and then I got a call from the farm, which I couldn't turn down. So I then moved to the farm, and that's where I've been ever since, working with Nigel Edwards here, who ran the audio department. And it's an amazing team here now, and it's an amazing group of people, and really collaborative, and learned so much from so many different people. It's been amazing.
I mean, looking at the things that we're the clips that we've got to show today, one of the things that's really obvious is that you don't see sound simply as a kind of a means of conveying something. You're using it as a really creative thing all the time, aren't you? You're seeing it in just the same way as we would use pictures.
Absolutely. I mean, it tells half the story, the sound, and it's often overlooked, I think, and it's a really important part of the program. Someone once said to me, I think it might be Nigel actually, if a program without pictures is a radio show, whereas a program without the sound is quite hard to watch. So the sound is crucial, and it can be forgotten sometimes, but it's certainly, with the advent of Dolby Atmos and all these new audio formats, people are appreciating it a lot more, and understand that it really makes a big difference to the system and to the overall program, and it really adds to the whole system. Yeah.
Well, should we look at a clip? This is a kind of, I think, quite extraordinary. I did actually listen to this on the headphones this morning, and it is quite special. This is from the X Factor. It's the finale of Series 7, I think, and it's the sort of pre-titles. So that's way back in 2010. but this is one of the most sort of fast and furious sound mixes you will ever hear. We can talk about it afterwards. Just play the clip.
Thousands applied from every walk of life.
I'm 16 and I'm a student at the moment.
I've been working as a painter for a couple of years now.
I'm a mum. I've got 2 kids.
We're all young lads and we don't really have any money.
All with the same dream.
I feel like I'm really successful recording artist.
To sell records would be an absolute dream.
It's about time that people heard me.
We're ready for our life to be changed,
But the competition was fiercer than ever.
I'm singing for my life now because I ain't having to know. Did you own the whole stage?
Yeah! You are right up my street.
That's what I call a pop star.
Week after week, dreams came crashing down.
Nicola, FYD, Storm, it's John, Gracie, Aidan, Peg, Katie, Mary.
Now, just 4 remain.
One Direction, Matt, Rebecca, Cher.
But there can be only one winner. This weekend, it's the final. And for the very last time, battling for your votes, Danny and Matt Cardle.
I don't want to go home to painting and decorating. I want to win the X Factor and start my career.
I'm excited, I'm nervous. I just want to see Matt there with a winning smile on his face.
Cheryl with Cher Lloyd.
You thought that you'd all seen the best of me. You haven't seen anything yet.
Cher's brought a new dimension to the X Factor. To be crowned winner would be a really significant moment.
And Rebecca Ferguson.
It's the biggest opportunity I've ever been given in my life, and I'd just love to win it.
This means the world to Rebecca, her family, her children. She deserves a shot at her dream.
And Simon. And One Direction.
We want to be the first group to win the X Factor, and that's just what we intend to do.
Seeing these 5 guys' faces just going crazy, if their name was called, would be the best thing ever.
As the battle reaches fever pitch, expect fireworks. It's time
Right to win, yeah?
to face the music.
I think there's going to be a shock tonight.
Wow. So I would quite like to have seen the timeline for that. I don't know what that must have looked like, but I think sometimes when you're working on shows, you're conscious with sound that you've just got to deliver what's actually there and what's actually being said and so on, and let the viewers themselves just kind of listen to the thing. But with this, you just created a complete kind of palette of sound for the whole thing, aren't you? Can you just talk about the process of making something like this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it makes me smile watching that, because it was such a while back now. There are a lot of work. As you say, the timeline. I think we had about 60 tracks of audio would come in from the offline for that show. We would have to go through the AAF, which is obviously the format that comes out of the Avid, with all the audio tracks in it, and separate everything out, because obviously everything needs to be separated into dialogue, music, and effects. So we would go through that, and it was an epic thing to mix, and a great proving ground. All the guys here have kind of gone through those shows, those entertainment shows, because they're just so good to learn on and to work on. If you can manage the stress and the time constraints on those shows, you're really dragging the sound into something that sounds awesome at the end, mixing together all those different sounds, going through them, listening to the guide that's come out of the Avid as your audio guide. That's kind of where the production want to be. Sound, yeah, it's great fun and really hard work though, and quite against the wire sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say, just tell us a little bit about that, because I think that the kind of heart-pounding nature of working on a show like that, where you've got a very limited time and a great deal to achieve, that's kind of gives you a great deal of adrenaline, I guess, even when you're just kind of trying to get that delivered.
Absolutely. They changes would be done quite last minute, so they would continue changing the edit right up until probably the day before. So we would get a lock on maybe a Friday. The show TX is on a Saturday night, so we may have 4 or 5 mixers at the farm, all working on a part each, to get each part mixed, which could take 5 hours each part, because as you can probably hear, there's so much sound going on in them all the time. So then we would mix a part each and then give it to the kind of the mix that was running the whole session, who then would bring all those parts together and then have a review with the clients. But I remember doing one weekend on a Saturday morning, finishing in the early afternoon, and we only it's played down the line. It's from the farm to Beating Town, and we only just made it in time for TX. But it's good fun. It's exciting. And keeps you on your toes.
I was also thinking, when you've got so many layers of sound there, are you trying to mix for a kind of a nominal kind of viewer, a particular viewer? Are you kind of imagining that somebody might be watching it on their phone, they might be watching it on their kind of, in their home cinema, they might be watching it on a convention telly in the kitchen? What do you have in your mind when you're trying to mix something like that?
Certainly then, that was 10 years ago. So I mean, there weren't really many phones or anything at that point. So it was kind of just making sure it would work on a telly. Everything we view in the studios here, we often mix on the big speakers, but we'll always review it on a TV. So we have TVs in every single studio with exactly the same speakers, exactly the same setup. So we can monitor it and check it on those speakers to make sure that it gives the optimum viewing levels for people at home. It's kind of an average telly speaker we have. You're nowadays, we're very aware that people watch and consume content on every single device possible, from a phone, a laptop, iPads, and their own home systems at home as well. That's very common in the States. So we have to be aware of all those formats, and one of the skills in our job is to make sure that we make sure that sound works back on all those formats. The only one we don't have to worry about so much is theatres.
So I think we'll just move to a second clip now, which is also fantastic, but has got a very different mood and tone to it altogether. So this one's from The Last Igloo, which I think you won the RTS Craft and Design Award for Best Sound last year. It's the story of a lone Inuit as he hunts fish and constructs an igloo, but also the story of a disappearing way of life and climate change. But a completely different landscape in every sense to the one that we've just seen. Should we just play this clip and then have a discussion around it? I mean, that's such a brilliantly chosen contrast to the previous clip, in so much as it rests so heavily on the actual sound, and it's so beautifully judged, the use of actual sound and music on there, and it feels like it's an example almost of where less is more sort of thing, where you could easily overburden that clip with sound, couldn't you?
Absolutely. We met up with the director and the sound recordist and sound designer and myself very early on before they even went to the location and sort of discuss what we wanted to do with the sound, how we wanted the sound to be, how we wanted to feel. Also, the composer was involved in the call as well. So we all, between the group of us, it was lovely to get together and be able to discuss it. So we came up with the idea of using natural sync sound on everything, rather than adding not to add too many stock sound effects. So the sound recordist would record binaural on location. We would use all his sound effects, all his wild tracks. We went through them. They were added in the offline as well. For lots of the drone shots, which go above you, because of the sound of the drone was there, we would have to rebuild them all. But again, rather than using Foley in a studio or stock sound effects, James, our sound designer, methodically went through and replaced every sound with location sound, and everything was rebuilt. So again, it was just trying to make the sound as authentic as possible, to do justice to the program and to the subject, and that was the most important thing. And it was also decided early on to upmix it to Atmos. So initially, it was just going to be a stereo deliverable to the BBC, but we'd started doing Atmos at the farm at that point, so I knew how to do it, and it was a burgeoning format, and we suggested doing an Atmos because we really felt that the program would benefit from that feel you can only get from an Atmos mix. Everyone agreed, and they got managed to find some more money in the budget for the international deliverables, which was a great way of selling it. And we managed to mix it in Atmos, which we had a final screening in the Dolby Theatre in Soho Square, which was fantastic. But yeah, I'm very proud of that work, and the whole team. It's magical.
I mean, could you just talk to us a bit about the kind of, I guess the different methods you use to gather that sound, because there's quite a lot in there in different places, isn't it? You've got the sound of the dogs, you've got the sound under the water, there's lots going on, really, isn't there? It sounds far simpler than I suspect it actually was in terms of trying to gather that sound.
Yeah, I mean, again, it all starts with the location sound. The location sound was amazingly recorded, really clean. Apart from where the drone shots are obviously there, but because it's so quiet in an amazing space, the sound is really crisp and clean. There was also mentioned the ASMR, which is the feeling you get with certain sounds, and that was mentioned also very early on. So particularly with headphones on, you get this feeling in your body and in your head from certain sounds. That was also quite important to us. But it's a combination of the sound recordist recording the sound, us then going through all the rushes, picking out all those different sounds we want, the offline putting them together in an order they want as well, and then laying them all up and then mixing everything together with the composed music, which obviously complements the sound of the Arctic and that area so well, and bringing everything together to give us that soundtrack, which we got at the end.
It's terrific. I mean, is it something, for our audience here today, is it something you'd say think about sound from the very, very start of the production process? Because there's been, I think, because camera technology shifted on so much in the last 10, 15, 20 years, that sound, there was a period it felt where sound was playing second fiddle to the pictures all the time. And at the moment, I feel like we've got a little bit of a kind of renaissance for sound and the use of sound, and certainly that clip feels as though it's in some respects it's a kind of throwback to 20, 30 years ago, where you would have somebody who was picking up those pieces of sound for you, whereas often I'm dealing with stuff every day where you're rescuing things with sound rather than creating with them.
Absolutely, and that happens a lot still, and that is part of our job, is to help the sound that's come to us, because sometimes there is no sound recordist there. When I started sort of 25, 30 years ago, there was a sound recordist on every single shoot. Sadly, that craft is slowly slipping away, certainly on certain genres of programming. So there's a lot more of productions putting clip mics on people and then hoping that will be fine. That's all they need to worry about. And as we all know, that isn't often the case. So it's a real bonus to have sound recorders there, because it just takes the sound up to another level when it comes back into post. And yes, we can fix a lot of things now. We have a lot more tools at our disposal in the post, in sound post, that can fix things, that can restore the audio, make it a lot cleaner. But we want to be spending time being creative and being creative with the soundtrack rather than trying to rescue it. And so it's really important for productions to think about their sound, and a lot do, and I think it is getting better because people are realizing it's really important.
It certainly is. Yeah, it's one of those things where if you go into a kind of edit suite and you watch a sequence, and it can be the most beautifully shot sequence in the world, but if you can't hear what people are saying, it's a really big deal. And that seems the most basic thing. But consistently, you come across that problem, don't you, where people say, "Oh, I've got a great shot here," but they're not actually gathering what's being said, and that leads to frustration for the viewers, really.
Absolutely, and I do believe the viewers are mentioning that and commenting that a lot more now. They want consistent mixes. They want mixes they can hear. They want to be able to hear the audio clearly. All those things are really important to the viewer, and ultimately, we are making the programs for the viewers to watch. So it's important what we deliver to them. They can hear. Programs are watched by a huge range of ages and people. So we've got to make sure everyone can hear what's being said and what's being broadcast. And that starts from the audio being recorded on location. That's where it starts.
It's one of the most common complaints we ever receive about our shows is always that if you've got a sound mix and it's just not quite right, so if you've got the music up a little bit too high, the viewers kind of really quickly jump on it and go, that's not good. I mean, what are the most common mistakes?
Yeah.
What are the most common?
And rightly so, they should jump on it, because they've got to be able to hear it, and it's crucial. It's very easy. I think to save a lot of time, it can be easy just to push all the faders up and get a mix done, and it's not always the best way to do it, but it's time. We've got to be given the right time. We need to make the shows, and again, the guys need the right time to record the location sound as well. Those two things are crucial. But I think people really are realizing sound is important, and certainly the viewers are.
I mean, so what would be the most common mistakes? If you're a kind of a filmmaker in the kind of early part of your career, what are the things to avoid?
As in location wise,
what causes you the most problems, I suppose?
Sorry,
what causes you the most problems once it's arrived in the suite?
The use of a boom mic is crucial. It used to be used a lot more, obviously, when we had sound recordists. I mean, a boom mic is that long and is that thick, and is a substantial microphone, whereas a little clip mic you wear under your clothes is tiny. So the sound is going to be very different from both those microphones. I always say to clients, the clip mic worn on a person is your backup, is your safety net, whereas the boom mic, it sounds gorgeous, it's rich, the sound is so much better than the little clip mic you're wearing. That should be your main tool for capturing sound. So, and it's just easy, and if there's no sound recorders there, it's very easy not to drop the boom mic and not use it and just rely on the clip mic. So I would say that's probably our biggest issue. And then when the clip mic is used, it's covered in rustle, it's muffled, because no one's necessarily listening to it. So all those things are crucial. But there are some self-suiting directors that do know all the sound, and they do all that. I work with, and it can be taught, and maybe those skills are slipping away, and we need to, as a industry, readdress that and make sure everyone has those skills when they go out on a location, if they are self-shooting, to know how to capture the sound well and accurately. Because there's very much a lot of, we'll fix it in post, which we can, but it's just fixing. It's not finishing.
That particular clip it does remind you of the value of a simple thing like a wild track in a location, that actually getting the sound of the space with no one speaking, and so on, is important, and that feels like a little bit of a lost art as well. So could you explain what a wild track is and what it does?
Sure. So the sound recordist on that program, Igloo, because he knew what we wanted to do, he would spend time. He would go off on his own and record sort of 3 or 4 minutes of atmospheres. So just get the location sound, which we can then use later on in the dub. That can be laid up and added to what's already there. He probably went off and added all the smashes in the ice. He would have done it himself, recorded those as wild tracks. Even the walking he would have recorded separately. So we had all those things, all those elements we used then to build up the soundtrack later. So rather than it sounding added, it all sounded authentic sounds. I remember him recording the pickaxe, which we had as wild tracks from him. He recorded loads of things as wild tracks that we could then get from him on a drive, load them into our sound systems here, and then our sound editor James Evans would then cut them all in and add them into and make just. It wasn't about making the sound overtly over the top on Igloo, because it wasn't about that. It was just about making it sound real and authentic, and using all those ways of mixing it helped do that.
That's terrific. I mean, we'll go from what might be described as a bit of slow TV to something that's kind of anything but, I think, here. This next clip is from Netflix, Formula One Drive to Survive, which I think is a docuseries that's partly about racing, but also about the people and politics of what's actually a sort of huge multi-billion-pound business. I think you got the BAFTA last year for Factual Sound, and 2 nights ago an RTS Sound Award for this. So I think we'll watch it and hear it, and then we'll discuss it. Can you play the clip, please?
Here come the lights.
Hamilton then gets away well, Verstappen off the line well. Perez coming up on the inside of Verstappen, who is now in second place.
Tyres are good, checker. We just want to keep this. Tyres are good.
Let's not good now. Towards the back, Grosjean has already gained 2 places coming out of turn 1. Alex Albon in 4th, trying to keep up with Sergio Perez as he speeds into the distance ahead. Grosjean still making moves to try and gain places.
Fuck.
What the fuck happened there? Fucking get him out.
I think that's Romain Grosjean that has gone into the barriers there. About 140 miles an hour.
What the fuck was that? Let's get the fuck out, quick. Red flag, there's a big incident, red flag.
Copy. Slow down, please.
Fog.
This was a big one. This was a big one. Is he okay?
I will come back to you.
No, please. Oh, fuck. Has he got help?
No information on it yet.
Shit, is he okay?
Come into the pit lane.
Oh, tell me he's okay, please. Tell me he's okay.
There are certain moments where silence falls on a racing track and you know what that means.
Well, I mean, that's an extraordinary clip. And I think we should just say that the driver in question did actually kind of make it out of that car, I think, didn't he? He did survive.
He did. Yeah.
And quite ironic there that the quote is actually saying that silence when it falls upon a racetrack is a big moment kind of thing. that must have taken an awful lot of kind of unpicking for you to try and get that into that sort of shape.
Yeah, it's the whole series is pretty epic. Actually, that's season 3, so we started sort of 3-4 years ago, very early on with home Atmos. I remember speaking to the head of sound at Netflix, and we were deciding whether the series should go into Atmos or not. And it was kind of, we were chatting about it, and we thought, no, there's lots of whooshes and zooms and cars and noises. It's perfect for going into Atmos. So we decided to mix it in Atmos, and kind of didn't look back really. It was pretty, it's been an amazing series for that. Could
you just explain what Atmos actually is, Nick?
Sure, yeah. So Dolby Atmos, on a normal TV, you will have a left and a right speaker, which is stereo. Some people have 5.1 at home, which is 6 speakers around your living room. So it gives you 3 at the front, a couple at the back, and then you have a subwoofer. So sound can go around you in one plane. Dolby Atmos puts speakers above you as well. So you feel like you're really in the middle of the sound. It gives you another dimension and another way of another sound design tool, Dolby Atmos. It's a really powerful way of mixing a soundtrack. It's used in theaters as well, but it's becoming more and more popular at home. Netflix and Apple use it for most of their programming now, also Sky. It's a great sound tool for us, and it's a great way of mixing sound as a mastering format, and it gives you the 5.1 mixes and the stereo mixes as well. So yeah, in its simplest form, it gives you speakers above you to give you, so the sound can encompass you and go in any 3D space in that room.
In a technical sense, is it challenging to do an Atmos mix that will also possibly be listened to on a phone, for example? Is it?
Yeah.
What are the challenges in doing that?
The brief for Formula One Drive to Survive initially was, we want it theatrical. That was the brief from the production and the director. They wanted it big, lots of energy, lots of loud, lots of quiet. So a lovely mixture. But ultimately, the series has to work on the TV, but it has to work on a phone, has to work on an iPad. People aren't watching them in theaters, so it has to work on the TV format. So again, whenever we will do our Dolby Atmos mix on our big speakers, around the room, and we will do a review with the clients. We will then also watch back each episode on the TV to make sure it works on the TV. We also have headphones in the studios now as well, so we can check that that it sounds good on headphones. And I'll also watch a bit on my iPad here and there just to check it works. But it's the way the process of Dolby Atmos works. The mix downs are so clever. They are. I describe Dolby as a bit of wizards. It's incredibly clever how they do their down mixes. They work really well, so we can trust the system and know that it'll work. But again, as a mixer, we know what we can and can't do. We can't go crazy with the Atmos mix because it isn't for theatre. It is just for TV. Not just for TV, but it is for TV.
Do you sort of talk about the production companies sometimes? Do you think that production companies realise the value in sound? Producers?
Yes. Yeah, I think more and more it's becoming understood. It's interesting, through my sort of 30 years, it goes up and down. Sometimes the sound is really important to people. Other shows, it's kind of just an add-on at the end that they have to do. It's part of the process that they aren't particularly interested in. But again, if people aren't interested in the sound, they often let us get on with it and will trust us at the farm to deliver the product they really want. Whereas other productions and other directors will be into the sound and analyze it and spend lots of time on it. It's definitely, I would say, we're on and up again at the moment. People are appreciating that sound is important, and it is really important to the whole overall film or series. And if people can't hear what's going on, they're not going to enjoy the program, and that's just that's how it is.
And if you're kind of a filmmaker who's working without a sound man with you, what's the kind of basic advice to them? Is what's the kit of parts that you need as somebody who's going to mix that show?
They need to practice before they go. Practice with a clip mic. Put a clip mic on someone. Listen to how it sounds. practice using a boom as well. As I mentioned earlier, we will always prefer to have a boom and a clip mic to give us both options, because I will always favor the boom because it sounds so much richer and cleaner as a sound source. But if the person being interviewed walks away from the boom, then at least we have the clip mic as a backup. Things can be done on a clip mic only, but as I said before, you get clothes rustle. They can get buried in clothing. They're not always monitored by the production, so they're not always listening. They might go off. They might fall down the people's clothing, so they get buried down here. It's just making sure they monitor those things, that we then when we get into post, we have the cleanest possible sound. And I do believe that it is getting better. And most clients, will always chat about it to me and ask me, even before they go on location, we'll have a chat about what they're doing, how they're going to do it, what ways of doing it, and what do I need. So it is getting better. People are understanding it's an important part of their film.
When someone's going out to start shooting at the kind of part of the crew, when they're going out perhaps on their own with the camera and so on, what's the sort of basic sound kit they should be taking with them? They should be taking the top mic. They should be taking radio mics. What should they take with them?
As in, that kit, they need to take obviously their camera. They need to take a radio mic that will sit on a contributor, so they can clip it on the back. The radio mic sits here. That connects back to the camera. Similar with the boom, the boom mic will have an XLR lead on it. You can get radio versions now as well, but most of them are wired still. So that will then connect back to the camera, so that they can connect. They'll then create two channels of sound. Channel 1 could be their boom. Channel 2 will be their radio mic. If the contributor is pretty close, they can use a top mic. That's also quite common. But again, the problem with the top mic is it's harder to chase the contributor around. If the camera is static and they move, they're very quickly off mic, whereas you can chase them around with a boom mic on a big boom arm. Otherwise, they're going to be out of range from the top mic. They're the most important things. If they've got those items, then they practice and listen to it beforehand and just check it, play it back, have a listen. Bring it into a facility. Ask the facility to check it for them, and we can give you feedback. Always happy to do that. Give feedback on what's been recorded, because ultimately, the better it's recorded is better for us, because it will sound better.
I think, and it probably reaches a kind of real high point in that clip we just watched. I'm fascinated by how much in this kind of world you add actually in the dub itself. How much of the stuff on that clip we've just seen, how much of it is you kind of going, actually, I'm going to pull something from there, I'm going to pull something from there, I'm going to add something to it. How much is it you taking the raw material and mixing the actual stuff you've got from the shoot itself?
Again, it's a mixture. But all these sounds we derive in the series will be derived from, again, location sound across the season. So as the season starts going, as a race weekend finishes, all the rushes are shipped back to the farm, and we will start going through the rush. James Evans, our sound designer, will start going through the rushes and picking out sync pools from that year. So we always make sure the cars are accurate for that year and that are the correct sounds and engine sounds, because they do change each year. And it's because we mix it in Dolby Atmos, we have to rebuild everything. So we can't just take the line feed from the broadcast. So we have to rebuild everything. We have 5 days. We have 2 days of pre-mixing the sound, and then we have a couple of days filing with the clients, and then a day to do all the deliverables for Netflix. And it's a lot of work. Each episode is probably 40 minutes long, and within that episode you may have 10-15 minutes of racing. And the racing, if you think every single car pass that you see has maybe 2 or 3 sounds attached to that, and each of those has to be panned and given height and moved around the room, it takes quite a long time. And we sort of do it in build up in stages. We'll go through, do a dialogue mix first, get the dialogues, because that's the anchor for the show. As long as the dialogue sounds consistent and clean, we can then build everything up around that. We'll go through, do the dialogues, go through, then do the sound effects. They tend to come to us pre-mixed from James, which is fantastic. So the panning is kind of in there. We just then need to add the height element, because he doesn't track lay in Atmos, he just track lays in 5.1. We give it the height element. Then we can add the music back in, and then we can then have a listen to it as an overall final mix and just check we're happy with everything. Once all those elements have been brought together, we then check the overall mix and make sure we can hear everything, and make sure that sequence works. And then we'll watch the whole program back in Atmos, check it back in 5.1, and then listen to it in stereo. And now,
so when you're actually mixing, have you got bins of sound? So you'll do car passing left, right, or car passing. What? How do you kind of even begin to set up?
Well, they'll be mono sounds. So it'll just be a car pass, and we can pan that pass wherever we want it. So James will just have a stock of hundreds of different car passes from different cars, different places on tracks, different teams. But we can add the panning in afterwards. So it doesn't matter whether it's recorded left to right. We can flip it later depending on what sound we want. But yeah, the sound gets to us as it's all track laid. So all the sound edit is done. The sound editorial is finished because James would have and Hugh, who worked on the series as well, would already have had 5 days doing the sound editorial. So the sound editorial would have already happened. It comes to us ready to mix. So the 5 days with us, the 4 days with us is the final mix. It's a huge amount of work that goes into those shows, and I hope that shows.
It certainly does. I think we've only got a couple of minutes left now. I think probably the best thing to do is if we just sort of talk to people about what's the best way, really. What advice would you give to people who might actually say, do you know what, I'm not going to be a camera person, I'm going to be a sound person, I'm going to go for that. What's the advice you'd give to them in terms of trying to get going?
Well, certainly if you're interested in post, the route I took, which is a runner, and work your way through that way is I think still the best way. I treat it as like an apprenticeship. You kind of, if you join the farm as a runner, we offer training as whilst you're running. So we take you aside and go, right, you want to get into sound? Okay, well, we'll spend some time with you. We'll give you a Pro Tools license to use. All the guys here, the sound team at the farm is an amazing group of people, and we train the runners. So when there is a position that comes up at the farm as a sound track layer, sound editor, we can move them straight up, and they're pretty much ready to go. They might need another month or so of just final training, but they'll be ready to go. Plus the fact, if they do decide to move on from the farm and go somewhere else, they've got a really good understanding of sound, of post-production sound. So yeah, I would say if you want to go off and do into and study sound first, that's fine. But ultimately, you'll end up back as a runner somewhere to then go through that process. And it's a great process because we can see you can see us, and you might not like sound, you might want to do something else. So during that period, it's a good way of finding out what you want to do.
And what's the emphasis between the technical, because it's obviously you've got to be very computer literate in a way to kind of to do the job, and the creative. You need both things, don't you? Really,
you need both things. But there's a mixture of mixers across the industry who are some are very creative and some are less creative. Some are very technical, some are less technical. As long as you have those skills, both those skills, you can do the job. You've got to have a passion for it and enjoy it. And watch TV shows at home. If you watch shows at home and understand what the genres are and how a show is constructed, you'll then understand how to mix the show and how to construct one yourself. If you've never watched TV, you're not going to have an understanding of what that genre is. So it's crucial to at least watch some shows and understand that format.
And I guess that extends not just to the sound that you get that you're getting from in actuality, but also to something like the use of music, doesn't it? Where the choice of music can actually dramatically transform a piece, can't it?
Yeah, and how it's mixed. I mean, generally music's chosen in the offline by the offline editor. That will be laid up for us, ready to go, or the composer will give us a new timeline of composed music, and it's our job then to make sure the music and the sound effects and the dialogue work together. It's very easy to throw different bits of music in, but you still have to mix them together and get that balance between those elements correct. If that balance isn't correct, it can still sound messy. So yeah, it's crucial. And in the final mix, we remove music, we add music. So those options are always open in the final mix to change all those things right up until the last minute. And people do. We do change things quite a lot.
I know. Look, that's a really fantastic insight into the world that you work in, and so I'll just say thank you for doing that.
Pleasure.
And I I hope everybody manages to catch the rest of the sessions later on, which also look as though they're going to be terrific. But for now, we'll say thank you.
Thank you.